watch this one. And you know what's really interesting is when you talk about Rosemary watching those games, and she's been spying almost. It's almost the best time to actually kind of think about the teams and what you're going to do in strategies. So like you say, she's going to be definitely one to watch here. Adam's going to have his work cut out for him.
Certainly is, and the leads are out. We have got the Ghastly and the Trapinch coming out for Adam, whereas Rosemary has got that Riolu and the Axew there out on the field. So Adam going for that really strong offensive pressure there with that Ghastly, going to be able to apply a lot of pressure. But Riolu, again, one of those Pokemon that we actually even see in the competitive video game, don't we?
Yeah, we do, with that prankster ability that it does have access to. It uses things commonly like coaching to boost the attack of its partnering Pokemon, which is very dangerous and something that Rosemary is going to have to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, the Life Orb there on the Axew doing a huge amount of damage to the opposing Trapinch, did about 50%. It's going to be doing even more if it's able to survive out the next turn, thanks to the coaching from the Riolu. Going to boost up its defense and its attack, but no, that Ghastly's so strong. Going for the Dazzling Gleam, picks up the solid KO against the Axew and takes down the Riolu to the Focus Sash. There's some really good information there for Adam, as the Trapinch is actually able to follow up. That Focus Sash is already no more, and also to no avail, as in this turn one of Little Cub, Adam's two Pokemon pick up a double KO.
That's a huge first turn for Adam, and it really puts Rosemary on the back foot here. You know, Adam taking a big lead here and already taking down two of Rosemary's Pokemon, and it's such a deficit now, but she is going to bring in the Eevee and the Gothita.
Yeah, I love seeing these additions that Rosemary has brought in. Of course, that Eevee, the Gigantamax version, that could definitely turn the tide of a match. And I think it's something that we and the viewers at home would really love to see, is Gigantamax Eevee getting a little bit of action here out on the Pokemon field. Gothita, of course, though, a Pokemon that, you know, is known for setting up that Trick Room, could potentially put itself into an environment where it can be a little bit more helpful here for Rosemary, and I'm so excited to see this. We have got Rosemary going for the Gigantamax on the Eevee. Oh, I'm so excited to see this, Lee.
Yeah, and here it comes. The Eevee we talked about in Team Preview is on the field, and one of the only baby Pokemon, you know, for the Little Cup that can actually use that Gigantamax ability. So very exciting to see it here. And Rosemary has to really do something now. You know, she's got a long way to kind of even up the score now and pull this one back. So it'll be interesting to see what this Eevee does, as we do see the Trapinch just protect here and another Dazzling Gleam come out from the Ghastly.
Oh, I mean, wise protect there from Adam on the Trapinch, you know, avoiding the fake out from the Gothita. The Ghastly, of course, locked into that Dazzling Gleam. So that's just the move it has to keep going for. But of course, it will get that boost as well from the Choice Specs. And it does a decent amount of chip to the Eevee. But that Max Quake going into the levitating Ghastly, just so unfortunate there for Eevee.
Yeah, and it's very difficult, I think, for Rosemary right now. The Ghastly's just kind of free to fire off these Dazzling Gleams, and you can see how much damage they're doing every turn. It's definitely a Pokemon that Rosemary kind of has to really make sure that she's taking full kind of time to look at and try and remove from the field, because you can't leave it alone. If you let it just sit on the field like it's doing now, it's going to quickly KO everything on her side of the field, and she's already lost two Pokemon to this.
Well, Eevee looks so delighted in the damage it is dealing out there. Going for the Max Steel Spike into the Trapinch, going to boost up the defenses on Rosemary's side of the field, and will be able to pick up a KO against that Trapinch as well. So Adam will be having one of his Pokemon return to its Pokeball, but it does, of course, give him the opportunity to bring in something else from the back now to continually apply pressure. Rosemary able to boost up the HP of Eevee with that Heal Pulse, though. That's certainly going to be helpful, particularly while it is in this Gigantamax stage as well. It's still got one more turn. It's going to be able to deal out some really good damage.
Yeah, it's a very nice tech to have on the Gothita there, the Heal Pulse, just making sure that your kind of main power Pokemon of your team is kind of staying around and being able to act like you want it to and take down and make KOs like it just has done onto that Trapinch.
Yeah, exactly. So much damage being thrown about here. And I think as well, you know, that Max Quake going into the Ghastly being locked into Dazzling Gleam, possibly predicting that it wants to switch out and just kind of reset a little bit, so that it can come in and maybe go for something like a ghost type move, like a shadow ball or something, to try and pick up the KO against that Gothita a little bit later on in the turn. But Adam just actually sticking with it here and just keeps going for those dazzling gleams. Sneasel jumping here on the field, going to be the Dynamax option, of course, for Adam here. And going to be able to apply some good pressure with that Max Knuckle. Going to be dealing super effective damage to the Eevee. Not enough to pick up the KO, but I think the critical thing here is it's going to get that attack boost. Of course, Ghastly isn't going to mind. It's not going to be very helpful to Ghastly, but I'm sure it's just going to appreciate the support all the same. As Eevee reveals it is the weakness policy. Oh my goodness, this is going to deal so much damage. If it's able to survive the Dazzling Gleam, yes, hanging on by only 6 HP. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a lot of damage with the G-Max Cuddle.
And the G-Max Cuddle, the signature Gigantamax move coming out from the Eevee after that weakness policy has been activated, boosting that attack and special attack by 2 stages, more than enough to take down the Sneasel. And Rosemary still hanging in here. She's got 1 Pokemon left on the field now, and it is that Gigantamax Eevee. It's got 1 turn of its Gigantamax turns left. So let's see, can it do enough to deal with the Ghastly and Adam's remaining Pokemon?
Yeah, that Cottony that's just come out onto the field, of course, it's a Pokemon that can be very, very kind of tricksy in the moves it can go for. It does have access to something like Dazzling Gleam for that offensive pressure. And, you know, if it is carrying something like the Focus Sash as well, any move from Eevee, it's going to be able to obviously survive that. The Ghastly, of course, going for that Dazzling Gleam it's locked into, breaks through the Adoration it has for Eevee and will be able to pick up the KO, taking game 1 for Adam. But Lee, I mean, that was definitely kind of turning back for Rosemary with the Eevee out there on the field. So amazing to see her nearly bring it back, but Adam just had such an offensive pressure, was too strong with his synergy. I think that turn 1 really kind of put Rosemary on the back foot, but hey, it's a best of 3. That's what they're there for. You can regroup and readjust going into game 2.
Yeah, there's a lot you can take if you're Rosemary from this match. You did, as you've mentioned there, Adam was dominant throughout from start to finish. The offensive lead and the offensive pressure that he was putting on with that Ghastly, just you saw every turn just Dazzling Gleam. He didn't need to press anything else, and the amount of damage it was doing was just enough to kind of tip the battle way in his favor and make it very difficult for Rosemary to kind of make any sort of comeback there. You really have to prioritize the Ghastly, I think, if you're Rosemary going into a game 2, and Adam will be aware of this. You know, it's just the offensive pressure there. You would imagine it's probably got one of those choice items we don't know yet, but the fact that it didn't change moves, it just threw out the Dazzling Gleams every turn, just kind of makes it indicate that's what is being used by Adam there.
Yeah, exactly. The damage output from that Dazzling Gleam really indicating that kind of choice specs variant that he'd be bringing back into this Players Cup 2 Little Cup match. But of course, Eevee did reveal, you know, that it had that Max Quake, and maybe if it was able to connect into a target, maybe try boosting up those special defenses, that would potentially put Rosemary in a little bit of a better position to deal with those big, strong special attacks from the Ghastly.
Yeah, and I think that she's got to change it up in some sort of respect, because if she leads again like she did, you're not really getting any benefit. The Axew obviously getting caught out there by the Dazzling Gleam, obviously weak to the Fairy type move there, and it's not something you would maybe expect on Ghastly. So now she knows about that. I think readjust, change the leads, and maybe look at some of the other options there. I do like the Gothita. It has got the option to heal pulse, and that kind of can prolong the longevity of her Pokemon on her side of the field, and maybe make it a little more difficult for Adam to actually get a hold of the game like he did in that first one there.
Well, game 2 may well be a very different story for these two battlers, and I can't wait to see if Rosemary's maybe going to be able to go for a strategy and get potentially the Trick Room up as well. With that Gothita being able to go for Heal Pulse in that slower environment, it certainly would give her a great opportunity to kind of keep the longevity of her Pokemon out in the field, while the partner Pokemon can deal out really, really big damage. So as soon as we're able to jump into that game 2, we can see how they're going to maybe adjust up their leads, and whether Adam needs to even adjust it at all. But he does indeed. It's going to be the Coughing and the Archon here out on the field with Gothita and Omanite for Rosemary. So changes a piece of both of our trainers, and I have to say I am loving the synergy from Adam here, having that Coughing here out on the field paired up with the Archon.
Yeah, and it's, as you mentioned in the team preview, I think one of the things that Rosemary's probably indicated here is if she can get her Trick Room up, then it does make things a lot easier for her. So with that option potentially on the Gothita now, she has got the potential to set a Trick Room up and then gain the speed control advantage. Adam as well, changing it up as well with the Archon. You know, it is a very strong Pokemon, so it's something that you need to watch out for as well, especially with the neutralizing gas that will be potentially available on the Coughing there to get rid of its defeatist ability. That is the one drawback to using that Pokemon.
That's the thing, Archon's such a strong Pokemon, but its ability holds it back. But if you pair it up with Coughing and the neutralizing gas, then it's just going to be so strong. It's not going to have to worry about its ability holding it back. And as you can see, Adam has decided to Dynamax it, going straight for that max Rockfall. Going to, of course, bring the Sand onto the field at the end of the turn, but connect down onto that Omanyte and pick up a solid one-hit KO against it. Oh, the adorable little Omanyte is going to be leaving the field almost as quickly as it joined, but this Gothita is still here, potentially able to go for that Trick Room Sludge Bomb. However, going to come out first of all from the Ghastly, but Gothita easily able to take that and does get the Trick Room up. And although it's sad for Rosemary, she lost the Omanyte, she at least has the opportunity now to bring in a Pokemon from the back that can take full advantage of this Trick Room.
It's almost the perfect situation. You're quite sad to lose the Omanyte. Obviously, you don't want to go down a Pokemon so early in the game, but as you're setting the Trick Room up, it's the perfect opportunity for her to bring in a Pokemon to take full advantage of this Trick Room. And this is a perfect situation for Rosemary now. She's got the maximum turns of Trick Room to take advantage of what has just come into the field in that Lileep.
Exactly, the Leap coming on here into the field, and if that wants to be potentially the Dynamax Pokemon, you could go for some really kind of big, heavy offensive moves. And you can potentially start setting up as well, if it's got any kind of sort of ground type move, going for those Max Quakes, you're going to start setting up your special defense. And if Adam maybe has that Ghastly in the back for kind of an endgame situation, that's going to help out a lot. But of course, Lileep having access to something like Stockpile is going to be able to boost up its own defenses, so defense and special defense being boosted up on the Lileep, as Gothita making use of Trick Room, going for that Psychic into the Coughing. Not enough to pick up the KO, but does a really big chunk of damage as Coughing is able to retaliate with a Sludge Bomb, targeting to that Lileep that's easily able to take it. Archon, of course, not going to enjoy this Trick Room environment, moving last, but is able to fire off that max Rockfall into the Lileep. But Lileep's boosting from that Stockpile is really, really helping out here, able to stay throughout the turn, and now going into this next turn can maybe be a little bit more of an offensive pressure.
Yeah, and Rosemary in a really nice position now. She can go for either the Psychic into the Coughing, remove that threat from Adam's side of the field, or she could maybe go for the Heal Pulse that we saw in Game 1 to extend the longevity of this Lileep after it has got that Stockpile boost already, which has been so pivotal in allowing it to sit on the field for that little bit longer.
Defensive plays, though, coming out from both of the players here at the moment. Adam going for that Protect onto the Coughing, predicting the Psychic coming out from Gothita, just trying to burn through some of these Trick Room turns as Lileep, of course, restores up some of its HP with that Recover. Archon, however, going straight for the Max Rockfall again, just going to go take almost about a quarter of damage into the Lileep, but I believe that is the very last turn of the Dynamax there from Adam, and Rosemary still has it to go. So I actually really like this play here by Rosemary, where she's preserved that Dynamax for a more opportune moment. You know, Adam doesn't have access to it anymore, whereas Rosemary has the opportunity to maybe start dealing out some really big damage where Adam can't protect himself as much.
Yeah, and I mentioned the Heal Pulse. She doesn't actually need it because we saw the Recover there in the Lileep in it. I mean, it's such a great play and a string of plays from Rosemary to stall out the Dynamax on Adam's side of the field. When you can do that and you've still got the Dynamax on your side of the field to take advantage of once you are in that perfect position, that's what you're looking for as we see another Stockpile come out from this Lileep.
I'd be getting really worried if I was Adam right now. This Lileep is proving to be such a threat, getting up its both of its defense and special defense stats. Going to make it a really, really bulky Pokemon out on the field. Gothita, of course, going to be KO'd there by the Sand, leaving Rosemary with her last two remaining Pokemon out on the field. Adam has utilized the opportunity to bring in the Sneasel, so obviously we'll have access to potential Fake Out in this next turn, but there's the Eevee again. It's so excited to be back on the field. We're excited to see it, and Rosemary still hasn't used her Dynamax. This could be the perfect opportunity to start dealing out some really big damage.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see which one she does Dynamax, if she goes for the Gigantamax on the Eevee or the Lileep that's actually set up, because it's so defensively built now, you know, with those stockpiles behind it. It's going to take a lot for Adam to actually break it down, and maybe a little bit of luck to get through it with a critical hit or something like that is what potentially could foil Rosemary's plans. But at the minute, she's sitting in an extremely strong position, still under this Trick Room, and needs to take advantage of this Trick Room and these Trick Room turns while she's got the opportunity to.
Exactly. Well, Rosemary going to go for that Gigantamax on the Eevee, going to make her hit us on the field, have its delightful cry sort of erupt around the arena, and ready to try and pull this back for Rosemary. You know, she really wants to be able to take this to a game 3 and try and fight it out for victory. But a really nice switch in there with Adam for the Ghastly, because of course any ground type moves aren't going to affect the Ghastly due to its levitate ability, and any normal type moves of course won't affect it either, being a ghost type. Lilip going to regain a little bit more HP here as well as Gmax Cuddle comes out from the Eevee. It looks so happy to be dealing damage. It's just such a delightful Pokemon, and it manages to pick up that KO, so dealing some really strong damage from Eevee. Sneasel is going to be KO'd, and this is where things get a little bit awkward now, because if Adam is bringing back in that coughing, then the levitate on the Ghastly isn't going to happen.
Yeah, and then it's susceptible to those ground type attacks from the Lilip, and that can be a bit of a problem for Adam. And obviously it has been attracted. The secondary effect from the Gmax Cuddle from this Eevee as well will be affecting the Ghastly, so whether Adam wants to risk maybe not attacking this turn through the infatuation is another thing to consider here. The coughing in an awkward position now where it is in KO range, and the Ghastly really not as comfortable was in that game 1, so Rosemary turned the tables. But Adam's still not out of this. We've seen how much pressure this Ghastly can put on. If it can start getting these Dazzling Gleams or Shadow Balls off, it will start doing a lot of damage. Actually opting for the Sludge Bomb here.
Oh, it targets down into the Lilip, does a decent chunk of damage despite the boost to Lilip, and actually gets the poison. That could be so detrimental going into the last couple of turns. Eevee, however, going for the Max Quake into that coughing, picks up the solid KO, and will, of course, get the special defense boosted up on Rosemary's side of the field. We know that that Ghastly is going to be locked into the Sludge Bomb now as well, and with the boost that Rosemary has enabled onto her Pokemon, it is going to have a tough time picking up KOs here, but at the same time, that poison is going to be a ticking clock against that Lilip. It's just whether Eevee is maybe able to deal damage to this Ghastly. You know, it's going to have its Levitate ability now as well. We know that Eevee has a Steel-type move. That's probably the only move it's going to have access to now to try and take down Adam's team.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that you maybe would have looked at in hindsight would have been better to get rid of the Ghastly before the coughing, because taking advantage of the neutralizing gas, like you mentioned, Blue, to, you know, it removes the levitate so you can actually hit the Ghastly, and now it's in a position where it's got the poison off, which is very useful for that Lilip, which would have otherwise been extremely difficult to knock out. Now that's going to chip it down, and again, going for another Sludge Bomb and getting the poison onto the Eevee as well.
Well, Ghastly's really on a mission here, gets the double poison. Eevee gonna go here for the Max Steel Spike, targeting down into the Archon. Does do a huge amount of damage though, picks up that solid KO against it. Of course, super effective damage, and gets the defense boost as well. Doesn't have to worry about the defense boost too much though, of course, special attacker Ghastly over there. But we can see how much damage that Ghastly is dealing out. And Lilip, you know, we're looking at its move pool here, and it doesn't have the most offensive moves. You know, we've seen the Giga Drain there as well, but whether or not that's going to be enough to whittle away against this Ghastly, while Lilip has its own sort of poison timer on there as well, it's certainly going to lead for a very interesting endgame.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the case of if Adam targets the Eevee now it's not Gigantamaxed, and it goes down, it's going to make things, like you say, very difficult for this Lilip. It's going to be relying on those Giga Drains to stall out, really, and try and chip down this Ghastly as much as possible, because it's not really going to be doing as much damage as needed. But we'll have to see what happens, because the Sludge Bombs, as we know and we have seen, are going to be doing that considerable amount of damage. And the Eevee, unfortunately, does drop for Rosemary.
Yeah, Ghastly really has not fallen for any of Eevee's charms in this game. You know, hasn't been immobilized once and able to keep firing off those Sludge Bombs. And you can see from Lilip, it's really not dealing a lot of damage with those Giga Drains. And the poison's just able to keep chipping away, kind of, I guess, counteracting the HP recovery that Lilip is doing with the Giga Drains. Whereas the Ghastly's still able to go for those Sludge Bombs. Fires off another one here into Lilip, does about 4 or 5 HP of damage. But this is, of course, the other turn of events here. Lee, recover is a thing.
Yeah, and definitely allowing Rosemary a way out of this match. You know, if she can stall out these Sludge Bombs with the move options that she's got Giga Drain, she's got Recovery, she's got the stockpiles up already, it might be enough for her to stall out. The poison definitely isn't helping, but saying that, you know, the Lilip is in a position now where it's not getting knocked out by the Sludge Bombs, and you can see here as she goes for the Giga Drain, it just gives her enough health to really take another sludge bomb and maybe get a recovery off and allow her to stall out these sludge bombs. So that's what we're kind of hoping for if you are on Rosemary's side, and if you're on Adam's side, you're kind of hoping either for a critical hit with a sludge bomb or just to kind of keep chipping away before these sludge bombs run out of PP.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think if you're Adam, the critical hit is what you need right now. This Lilip has been set up so perfectly by Rosemary throughout the whole game, you know, being able to get the special defense boosts up on there, using the max quake as well on the Eevee to boost them up even further, and having those recovery options. You know, Giga Drain isn't doing a lot to the opposing Ghastly, but it's doing enough, and Ghastly doesn't have option to that recovery in the same way that Lilip does. So it's almost like the tables are really turning into Lilip's favor here. You see it going for this Giga Drain once again. Deals a good chunk of damage, about a 1/6 of damage to that opposing Ghastly, and you know, you just need 1 or 2 more of those turns and Lilip isn't going down in its HP bar. So it looks like Lilip's actually going to be able to take this Rosemary and push to a game 3.
Yeah, and I'm actually very surprised with the damage that the Giga Drain's doing, and I think just because of that, it is going to be enough to deal with the Ghastly and maybe just clinch the game for her. And those stockpiles early on and taking the opportunity to get those defensive boosts up was a very, very smart play here, especially against the offensive nature of Adam's team.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that was just such a dynamic sort of turn of events. I mean, it's not always the most exciting way to end a game when you kind of have that recovery, but the fact that it actually came down to a really tense ending between this Lilip and the Ghastly did make it exciting because it pushed through for that game 3. And, you know, in a couple of turns in that game with the offensive pressure that Adam had, and the fact that he had these 2 Pokemon in the back with the Coughing and the Archon as well to keep bringing in, meant that he could stall out the Trick Room and constantly was kind of putting Rosemary on that back foot, not allowing her to be able to deal out the kind of strategy she wanted to. But in the end game, she actually had managed to think ahead, set up the Lilip to have those kind of defensive boosts in place so that it was able to, you know, take out game 2. And I'm really excited to see how it's going to go down in game 3.
Yeah, exactly. I think obviously we saw game 1 kind of unfold in one way, and then the reaction from Rosemary in game 2 with that Trick Room we mentioned being a way to really kind of counterplay Adam's kind of hyper offensive fast mode, and it really did pay off. At the start of the Trick Room, it didn't look as though she was really taking and making the most of that environment, but in the end game it really showed through the whole strategy, the underlying strategy there of getting those stockpiles off when she had the opportunity, set the Lilip up and just made it pretty much untouchable. Even with the poison, you saw it was so difficult for the Ghastly, which was so effective in game 1, to really do anything to it, and going down to a not very effective attack in the Giga Drain in the end really showed what a good game plan it was, making the use of the Eevee while she had it out on the field to get rid of some supporting threats, you know, like the Archon and the Coughing as well. There was a time there where it's like, oh, the Ghastly could do it potentially, but no, it was just the Lilip was too much, and a really nice play, and it's making for a very exciting game 3 going into this next one.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if Rosemary brings the Lilip to the 3rd game, then Adam cannot underestimate it, like what happened here in game 2. You know, it's not dealing a lot of offensive pressure. You can maybe try and take out the more heavy hitters like the Eevee, and even the Gothita with those Psychics was applying a lot of pressure to the Coughing, and they're kind of your most pressing threat, which just allowed the Lilip to kind of sit there silently. Hey, I'm going to stockpile, maybe get a recover here and there, and just put Rosemary in this phenomenal game 2 situation. So I wonder if she is going to bring it to game 3 and kind of keep that defensive sort of endgame strategy in play, or maybe if we're going to see a more sort of offensive start from her in game 3.
Yeah, I would imagine we will see the Lilip again. It was so effective in that second game there, and I think the one thing, if you're on Adam's side of the field, to really take note of and prioritize going into game 3 is stopping the Gothita and stopping that Trick Room. If you can stop the Trick Room, then you keep that advantage of the speed that you've already got, you know, the natural speed control that you've got there. If you can shut that Trick Room down, it makes things way less complicated. It doesn't allow the Lilip room to get the stockpiles off, and you can kind of keep up with the offensive nature of the team and build momentum that way. But if you allow the Trick Room to go up, then I think things will get a bit tricky going forward, so to speak, not to use a pun or anything.
Never. We're not cheesy at all behind the desk here, Lee. But let's not wait any longer and jump into game 3, because I want to see what strategies they're going to be able to bring, and obviously who's going to become our little cup champion here in Pokemon Players Cup 2. And it's going to be for Adam the Cottony and the Ghastly, whereas Rosemary's side, she's got the Eevee and the Riolu out in the field. Now I am so excited by the synergy of Rosemary. We already know that Eevee has got the weakness policy, and it's now paired up to a Pokemon that is a fighting type, and I am just keeping my fingers crossed that we're going to see some really good synergy action coming out here from Rosemary.
Yeah, very exciting leads from both players as they change things up coming into this third game, I should say. Sorry, this is the deciding game. The Ghastly out on the field again, the last one again. The Cottony's a nice introduction from Adam as well, because it may have access to something like Taunt. It does have access to speed control as well with the Tailwind, so it is a supporting Pokemon, and it'll be interesting to see what support it provides for that Ghastly that was so effective in game one.
That's the thing, Prankster ability does allow you to get all kind of tricks going, and particularly if it's got access to something like Fake Tears, that's going to lower the special defense of the opposing Pokemon, allowing the Ghastly to deal out huge damage. It has Dynamax, however, so it's going to lose that restriction of the choice spec, so it can change its moves in between turns, but of course will not get that extra boost to its special attack that the choiced item gives it. But if it is going to be paired up with something like a Fake Tears Cottony, then there's going to be a lot of destruction going out on the field. Rosemary, however, of course, going to Gigantamax out her Eevee as well, and I wonder if there's going to be a weakness policy activation. It is indeed the Fake Tears coming out from the Prankster Cottony, going to lower the special defense of that opposing Eevee as it gets hit by the Vacuum Wave from the Riolu. So again, another priority move, going to be able to proc that weakness policy, but will Eevee be allowed to move as Max Ooze comes out from the Ghastly?
Yeah, and that Fake Tears really hindering Rosemary's position there with the Eevee, with the Vacuum Move being a special base, a priority attack to proc the weakness policy and maybe just push it over the edge a little too much to take that Max Sludge. And it's really unfortunate there. Adam taking a big lead and really using that Ghastly to very, very good effect.
Oh, I mean, goodbye, Eevee. It has been such a delight having you here out in the battle, but unfortunately back to the Pokeball you go, as Lileep does join the field, though, for Rosemary in its stead. And of course, Lileep, we saw it kind of being the hero of that game too, but the one thing Adam's got going from him at the moment, he still can, again, just go for that Fake Tears and move with the Ghastly, but Ghastly, having gone for that Max Ooze, now is also at +1 special attack, so it's just going to be so formidable, and Rosemary doesn't have access to any more Dynamax. Going to follow up with another Max Ooze, targeting down into that Lileep that took the Fake Tears. It is actually able to survive, though, on 3 HP, so we'll be able to survive out the turn, but I don't think that the combination of Lileep and Riolu is going to be enough to really apply a lot of sort of offensive pressure to Adam's side. Lileep gonna go for that stockpile, so does just want to boost itself up, but I feel like that might have been a more opportune moment to have gone for something like a Recover, because at only 3 HP, anything really that this Ghastly does, even potentially through a Protect, is going to be able to pick up a KO against it.
Yeah, and just the Fake Tears from the Whimsicott in combination with that Ghastly is just so potent, and you can see there that I was surprised that the Leap actually hung on. Rosemary managed to get a stockpile off, but it feels a little bit too late, and unlike game 2 where she had the Trick Room support, haven't got that access to that here. And I think between the lead that Adam's thrown out, really probably preparing for that Gothita to come out on the field, having a way to stop that Trick Room, but otherwise just being able to dish out Fake Tears and Max Oozes is just a very strong combination against Rosemary's team.
Yeah, the Max Ooze just able to go against that Lileep, removes it from the field, but I think again, this Ghastly, it's now at +3 special attack. Its Dynamax will be over, but it's certainly going to return back to its normal size with a great advantage. Dazzling Gleam going to come out from the Cottony, takes the Riolu down to its Focus Sash, living on that 1 HP, but of course anything coming out from any of Adam's side, as long as it's able to connect, will be able to pick up the KO. Rock Slide coming out though from the Riolu does a decent chunk to the opposing Cottony, but Ghastly was able to nimbly dodge out of the way here and not have to take any more HP away.
Yeah, nimbly dodge was the right phrase there, Lou, as it's really the end of the Dynamax turns there for Adam, but this Ghastly now going to be potentially choice locked into maybe even something like Dazzling Gleam, which will be able to deal with both the Riolu and the Gothita pretty easily, combined with that Fake Tears that we've seen already from the Cottony.
Actually, just going to go straight for the Shadow Ball into the Gothita. Picks up that solid 1-hit KO. I mean, Riolu probably only really with those fighting type moves. That's not something Ghastly has to worry about too much. And it allows its partner Cottony to go for the Dazzling Gleam, pick up the KO against the Riolu, and take the little cup for Adam Dorricott. Oh, I'm so pleased for Adam. Huge congratulations to him being our Little Cup champion. You know, he was runner-up last time, able to come